Hello everyone, welcome to the sixth session on game development by Team Easter eggs. Let's build a game in Unity Part 2. Uh, and I hope that we are meeting after such a long gap and you had exams and all, and I hope that your first end semester exams went well. So now we shall resume with where we left about 20 days back. And this is the last session in this series. And the main aim of this session is to main aim of this session is the same, continue building on our previous game, and we have to add on the UI for the score, import some assets to create from our this prototype, raw prototype, to something like this. Actually today what you will get will be much better than this one, because I have made some changes and we'll be doing that only. I have used some different assets from this particular demo scene, so probably you all will like it. And next, we have to replace the current character with a 3D model. Just like this, we have this character of a soldier, which was taken from the Unity asset store. All the assets we are using here, like these buildings and these characters, have been taken from the Unity asset store, which is a wonderful place to download free as well as paid Unity assets created by many talented artists and developers. So I'll show you how to import these stuffs into the game. And in the end, our main aim is to build and publish this game on some online platform. So we'll be using itch.io for that. And finally, then you can share that link with your friends, and then hope they all you can share this game with your friends and they all can play, which is the ultimate motive of building this game. So you can already notice the differences. So in the last session we had built our spawner. Now let me remind you what our spawner was. If you click on one, and if we see, yeah, and if you see, then you can see that this box, we actually first created a cube, then disabled its mesh renderer, and then we used that box area to define a bound, and then within this bound we were instantiating enemies during runtime. And we used a simple logic for generating enemies. The logic was that, let me just open the script once so that, yeah. So here is our enemy spawner. I have increased the font size. I hope the font size is okay now. Some of you complained that font size was small. Is it okay now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in this, uh, our main logic was to, at first, in the start, we took the center of our spawning location, and then we first took the maximum length and maximum width on each of the sides from the center of our spawner, that area. And then we created a new list for the enemy instance to store the enemy instance generated. And in the start loop, when the game just starts running, in the first frame of the update itself, we instantiated enemies up to the enemy count, which is a public variable, and by default its value was 5. So for each of the particular this enemy spawner locations, we have 5 enemies spawned within that particular bound at random locations. Here you can see how we are using random.range to specify rand x and rand y, rand x and rand z coordinates. And then we are using this enemy instance, this instantiate to uh, add new enemies in our list. And then in the update, what we are doing is we are checking if the particular enemy that was generated by this enemy instance, if it is destroyed by the character, and if it is destroyed, then its instance will become null. Then we remove its instance, and as a result, the count of the list, this enemy instance list, decreases. The number of elements in this list decreases, and once this count decreases below goes below 2, then we again run that complete cycle, and we again spawn 5 new enemies. So in this way you get a loop sort of stuff, where the logic continues, and the enemies are endlessly generated. So this was our basic approach, and I hope this was clear in the last session. Hello. Okay. Okay. So now now today our aim is to first build the UI for the score, for showing the score, just like we have in our demo scene. Here we have this small text which shows the score. As soon as you hit a box, the score increases when you kill one box. So to implement this, let's say displaying is another issue, but let's say that if you have to maintain the count of how many boxes you have destroyed, what would be the logic you all would use? You can give your answers, share your views. How would you do that if you were supposed to do this, keeping in mind the scripts we have currently or methods we are using currently? Any idea?
Sir, in the enemy spawner, the number of times that that place becomes null, that
Okay.
index, yeah, sir, in the enemy spawner, the number of times that index in the array becomes null, you can count that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. Good. So this is the thing we'll be following here. Although there are many other, options, like we can maintain a global count for the enemies, like not as an individual spawner count. We can maintain the global count, and then we can search in the script. We can search in the scene, and once the current count decreases, we can increase the score by that factor. So there are multiple techniques, but what we'll be doing is the same, that like our friend mentioned. So for that, let's first create this UI part, this text that should appear here, so that we can display the score as a feedback. So for that, for placing UI elements in Unity, we have a concept of canvas. So to add a canvas in your hierarchy window, you can click on this plus sign here, or alternatively, you can use the right click. So both of the techniques are fine, whichever goes best with you. So if I click on this plus sign, I have this list, and then here in the UI part, if I go down here, I have an option of canvas. When I click this, you can see that a canvas is added to the sample scene, and you can see that here a big, very big sort of 2D region has been defined. So actually, canvas is a holder in Unity within which all the UI elements should reside. So it is like you can say, like it is like a page which is which covers this entire screen at all times. And on this page, all your UI elements, this is a transparent page, and on this transparent page, all your UI elements float. So this is the use of canvas, and if I want to edit the canvas, I need to I need to work in the 2D mode, because canvas elements are 2D, right? So in the scene view, we have here multiple buttons. So to go in 2D mode, to view in 2D mode, what we can do is we can activate this 2D button. See what the tooltip is showing here. When toggled on, the scene is in 2D view. Okay, so if I click this here, then you can see that the my complete scene has now turned like in a 2D mode. So you can see that this I have this 2D bounded this rectangle bounded area, and this is the area which is marked by my canvas. So within this area, whatever elements will be present will be displayed here in the screen. For example, if some element is present here on the screen, it will be rendered here. So you can map this accordingly to the respective locations. And now, as you can see in our demo scene, we have one text here at the top corner, at the top center. Okay, so to add that what we can do is we can right click on canvas, and within canvas we have multiple UI elements that we can add. So we have text mesh float, which is actually a library consisting of multiple fonts, and then we have image, buttons, sliders, scroll bar, drop down, means everything that a UI consists of. We have all the options here. So we need to add text. So if we click on text, yeah, so if we click on text, then text will be added. Yeah, so our text is added, and as you can see, this text is added in the middle of the screen. And here also in the game view, you can see that it appears in the middle of the screen. Now it is shifted a bit towards left because our text is aligned to the left and is aligned to the top corner, to the top of this space. So that this is why it is aligned to the left a bit. So now we need to move it up so that it appears at the top. So for that, what we need to do is we can simply select this text. Let's first rename this to score, since we are using this element to store our score. I'm renaming this element as score in our inspector window. And then what we can do is we can position it to the top. Now how we are going to do that? So in this inspector window, for this text element which we just renamed score, you have this rect transform component. So this basically is an anchor based system where, as you can see, just like in ships we have the anchor, we have some anchor points, and the ship where it is anchored, it has a sort of uh, relative referencing to that point. So here also, currently this core element is anchored to the center. As you can see here, this dot and this box is at the center, so that is why our this element is in the center. Now if we have to, let's say, change its alignment, so what we will do is we'll click on this icon here where it is written center and middle, and then here we have multiple anchor options present. Now what we need to do is we need to press alt plus shift together. Alt and shift, you need to hold alt and shift. Now you can see that there are small dots here. Uh, if I remove it, then you can see there is no dot here. And when I press this, you can see that these boxes shift to different alignments, and you have this anchor points, this marking, just like this blue one. You have these small blue ones, anchor marking points, shifted to these locations. So we need our anchor point to be here at the top, because we need our element to be displayed here at the top. So if you click on this while holding alt plus shift key, if you click on this, then you can see that it will get aligned to the top, and its anchor has also moved to the top. So similarly, you have to if you want to place any other UI element, you have to follow the same procedure. So now we have our score element at the top, and let's first align our text properly. So in this score element which we added, which is a text type element, here after the rect transform, we have this text component. Now this text component holds all the properties of the text that will be displayed here. We have what text will be displayed here is controlled by this text. Here it is written new text, so that is why here it is showing new text. This is the default one. Now if I delete this and if I type hello, then you see that here hello will be displayed. So this is how you can set the text, and we will be using this property of this text component to set the score here, show the score here, update the score here from our script. So this is our text property. Now these are the normal formatting options, like what should be the font. Currently it is Arial. Now font style, we have normal, bold, italic, and we have this font style. Now we have this font size, which is currently 14, and it looks a bit small. So what we are going to do is we will be increasing it to, let's say, 30. But you can see that if I increase it to 30, it vanishes. Why? Because uh, for the overflow, when the size of the text increases out of these boxes bounds, then what happens is that condition for overflow occurs. And here in our paragraph corner, you can see that for horizontal overflow and vertical overflow, we have got two options, wrap and truncate. So these are self-explanatory. Wrap means it will shift the extra text to the next line for horizontal overflow, and vertical overflow it will delete the text that overflows this. So as you can see, since this is truncate, so the our text has vanished from here. So what we are going to do is we are simply going to set both of these parameters to overflow, and then you can see that our text, whatever, if we increase the size even, and even if this overflows, our text goes out of the bounds, it will still display. Okay, so let's set its size to something reasonable. Let's say 30, and let's align the text here. As I told you that the alignment was, left side alignment, and this is the horizontal alignment, and these three are the vertical alignments. So vertical is top, and here it is left sided alignment for horizontal. So we need to have it center aligned. So this middle one is for center aligned, and here also for the vertical one we need to align it to the center. So if we click here, so it will get aligned to the center. Okay, so this is how we have set our this font. Then we can set the color of this font, and you can set any color you want. For example, if I am just setting yellow for the moment. You can set any color you want using this color picker. I have set this yellow, and I'll also set the transparency to something low so that it looks a bit fine. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just reset this text hello to 0 because that's our initial score. And now we have our score here. Okay, so now what we need to do is our next task is to update this score using uh, a script. Whenever we kill an enemy, the score counter should increase. So how do we do that? Now for that, like our friend suggested, we first have to maintain a variable actually to see to record how many enemies have been killed in the particular enemy spawner. Like for example, in our scene, we are using two different enemy spawners. Okay, so for these both of these two enemy spawners are separate instances, and these both enemy spawners will have their separate count for enemy generation, which we are using as a logic to generate more enemies during runtime. So since there can be multiple enemy spawners in the scene, so what our main logic is to let's first create a variable which will store the number of enemies killed in which were generated by this particular enemy spawner, by a particular enemy spawner. So for that, let's first create a public int. Why are we naming this public? Can anyone know why are we creating this public?
So we want to use it for another game object.
Yeah, so we need to access it from another game object, and that is why we have named this instance. We have created this as a public variable. Public int score is equal to 0. We have set this to 0 initially, since initially none of the enemies have were killed, and so our score remains 0 for this particular enemy spawner. And then here we don't have to do anything in the start, because in the start only the enemies will be spawned, and whatever update will be happening in this update function. And here we have the whole meat of this particular program. Here, as you can see that here we are the place where we are checking the null checking for null instances. Here itself we can simply increase the count. For example, if we kill enemy number 1, then for enemy number 1 this instance will show null, and whenever it will show null, which means that we have hit one enemy and our score should increase by 1. So it's pretty simple. We will just do here score is equal to score plus 1. Score is equal to score plus 1. This means that whatever is the current value of our score, we are updating it by 1. Once an enemy dies, we are updating the current value of the score by 1. Is that understood? Why are we doing here score is equal to score plus 1?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So, uh, so now our logic for score is complete. Now our score will be stored for each of the instances of enemy spawner. So now we have a situation like since we have these two different enemy spawners here. Now for this enemy spawner, that score will have a different count since it will record all those enemy kills that were killed by the player, which were generated by this enemy spawner. And this enemy spawner one will have another count for the score variable, which will store the number of enemies killed by the player, which were generated by this enemy spawner. So for to get the cumulative score for all the enemy spawners that are present in our scene, what we need to do is we need to take the instances of all the enemy spawners. We need to search in the complete scene, like how many enemy spawners are there, and then from each of the enemies we need to store each of these enemy spawners in a list, just like we are doing here. If you remember, in our enemy follower, what we did was we were using this find game objects with tag player, and we were storing our player in this by searching for our player in the scene using this function. So here also what we will do is we'll use find game objects with tag enemy spawner. We'll create a new tag for our enemy spawners, and then we will store that in a list. And because in when we were storing players, since we had only one player in the complete scene, so we simply use this index number 0 for storing the particular player, only the single player. But now since we'll be having multiple instances of our spawner, so what we will do is we'll have to create a list instead of a single variable of the type game object. We'll have to create a game object list which will store all the instances of that enemy spawner, and then we'll run a simple loop which will take the value of the value of that score variable from the script attached to each of the enemy spawner, and then add it to a global score variable, and that global score variable will be shown here. So it might be confusing at the moment, but when we start to code it right now, you will just understand why we are doing so. So to handle our UI, it's better that we first create an empty game object so that we can handle the UI things better. So we can create an empty by clicking here on the plus button and then click on create empty. We have an empty game objects in the scene. Let's first switch back to our 3D view. So if you click back here on the 2D mode again, you'll switch back to the 3D view. And if I want to go back to my player, if I double click on my player, I'll go back to my player. Okay, now here I have created this empty game object which will be just present in the world. It will hold only the scripts and nothing else. So we just reset its transform once, and then in this game object, let's rename this as UI manager. Now in this UI manager, let's add a new script, and let's name this script as I'll say UI underscore manager, since this will update all our UI, all the things related to our UI. So currently in our UI, we only have this score, so it will be used for updating our score. Now I'll open this script. Now again we are greeted with this screen, this empty template, and so our line of action was we first have to create a list. We will iterate over all the elements in our scene, and then we will store all the elements which have the tag enemy spawner in a list, and then we will reiterate in the update function. We will continuously iterate on all those enemy spawners, and we will add their cumulative scores and then show the grand total on the screen. So that is our main aim. So for that, let's first create a game object list, or rather let's say array in for this one. So game object, if you add these two brackets, square brackets, then it will represent an array. Game object, array of game objects of type, and I'll name this as enemy spawner, since we are storing enemy spawner instances in this. Then let's store one. Let's store the. We also need to update the score. We also need to update this text, right? And what I told you that for updating this text, we'll have to access this text component of our score, this score game object, right? So for this, we will create a text type game, a text type object, public text. Let's name it as public text score text. Let's name it like this. And you can see that it might be giving you error that text does not exist, namespace. So this is because you have to import one additional library, that is using Unity Engine, Unity Engine .ui. So this holds all the namespaces related to our this UI elements. So public text core text. Now it will store the text for that particular score element which we need to update, and then we need to initialize us. We need to store the count of the spawners in the scene. So for that we will use create an int variable and name it as a spawner count, and int spawner count is equal to 0, since we are initializing it to 0, since we'll be finding its count in the start method, and then we'll be updating its value. So in the start methods, just like we did for our player in the enemy follower script, we'll simply type here enemy spawner, which is our list. Enemy spawner is equal to game object, since this belongs to the game object class. Game object dot find game objects with tag, and the tag we are going to use is enemy spawner. Enemy spawner. Okay, and here we don't need to put that 0 because as I told you, this is an array, and that the in the enemy follower script, this was not an array, this was a simple game object, since we had only one instance. So we are storing this as an array itself. So now all our instances for the spawner will be stored in this enemy spawner, and then we can simply store the count. What is the number of count present in what is the count of the enemy spawners present in this list, by using spawner count is equal to enemy spawner dot length. So enemy spawner dot length, what this will do is it will iterate through this complete list of enemy spawner, and it will store what is the length. For example, in our scene we have 2 spawners, so this spawner count will hold the value 2. Okay, now why we are storing the spawner count? Because we need to iterate over all the enemy spawners each time in this update loop, so that we can add all the scores, cumulative scores from all the instances of our enemy spawner. Now in this update method, we will first create a variable, a normal variable for storing the score count. Okay, and for storing the score, this will be a local variable for storing the score in this iteration. When this loop, when this update function runs for one time in one frame, once per frame, so for that particular frame we'll be maintaining a count for the score. So let's just name this as score count. This is the particular global score which we are talking about. We will be displaying this score, and let's initialize it to 0. Now now what we need to do is, just like we said that just like I said, that we need to iterate over all the instances of the spawner count, and then add the scores for all those spawner game objects from all those scripts into this score count. Okay, so for loop we write a simple for script for int I is equal to 0. I is less than how many spawners we have, that is held by the spawner count. So spawner count I plus plus. Now we need to update the value. So value will be updated using score count. We need to update this value, right? So score count is equal to score count plus. Now we need to get the particular instance from this enemy spawner list. So enemy spawner from the enemy spawner list, we need the ith enemy spawner from this list. Enemy spawner I dot get component. What component we need? If you look at our enemy spawner, if you look at our enemy spawner, so the script, you can see that this core element is present in our enemy spawner script, right? So for this, what we need to do is we need to type here which component we need to get. So it is the enemy spawner component. In each of our enemy spawners, we have this enemy spawner script component. So we are getting that, and dot uh, from that what element we need to get. You can see in this we have here multiple options, so we need to get score, right? So we get score, and yeah, that's it. So what this line will do, what this loop will do, that this will run for all the spawners in the scene, and then it will update the particular score count, this local variable, with the score that is present in the ith enemy spawner script. Okay, so this is how it works. And then after this loop complete runs one complete time, so we have all the scores added to this score count variable, and this is our final global score, and this needs to be displayed. So for displaying, we have our this public text score text, this our score text element. So we can simply type score text, and in this score text, what is the thing that we need to change to display? So to display, as you can see in the text component, we have this text field. So we need to update this text field. Okay, so for this text field, we have score text. We have taken this text component, and score text dot, we need the text field. Score text dot text is equal to, we have to show the score count, set the text to score count, but score count is an integer, and this text holds a string. Okay, so see here it is written cannot implicitly convert type into string. So for that we need to pass this to into a string. So for that there is a very simple function in C# dot to string, and yeah, so it is done. And now this this text for the score text component will be updated to this score count value. Now if I save this script, move back to Unity, hold for halt reloading. Now in this UI manager, you can see that this score text is showing none, because we haven't assigned this any field like which score text it should use. So here in this score game object, we have our this text component, so it wants to use that, right? So we will simply use this score, left click on this and drag this out of here, and drag and drop it here on this text, this public game of this public variable, to assign this score text value for the text component of our score element. Now I guess we are all set, and if we try to play, and if I try to, oh, there is, oh, enemy spawner is not defined, right? We actually missed that giving a tag. Yeah, we haven't provided the tag like we are demanding here. We are finding for game objects with tag, and we haven't provided the tag, so we need to add that. So as you can see, there is no enemy spawner tag here. So for that, what I have done is, I am here in the prefabs folder where we stored our enemy spawner, and then here in the tag, I have clicked on this drop down, and I have clicked on add tag, and then here we had our previous tag bullet stored here. Now we need to create a new tag which is named as enemy spawner. Be sure to be precise with the case, because if case changes, then it is case sensitive, so it won't take any other case if the cases don't match. Now we have this enemy spawner tag, and then if we go to back to enemy spawner, then click on this untagged, and then we can assign this as enemy spawner. Now you can see that each of the enemy spawner in our game scene have now been tagged as enemy spawner. So this is the main advantage of creating these as prefabs. If I make change to the prefab, all the instances of the prefab that are present in the scene will be updated accordingly, and I don't have to search and skim through the complete scene and search for the particular components and make changes. That is quite tedious. So this is a very big advantage of using prefabs. So now if I hit play, and yeah, and now if I, yeah, as you can see, now if I shoot, the text is increasing, 9, 10, 11. So this is how it is working. So I hope you all understood what we are doing here. If anyone has any problem, then they can speak up. Hello.
So once you have the script,
Hmm?
once you have that script,
Okay, 1 minute. Yeah. UI manager. Yeah, it is here, right here. I'll just copy paste it. Okay, I'll just copy paste it there. Just copy paste it in the chat. You can refer from here. Do you have any other session today as well? I mean, any other event going on?
No, sir.
Oh, because the attendance has dropped drastically, so that is why I thought maybe. Okay, no issue. The recording will be there for everyone. So have you ever understood how it all works?
sir,
Yes, yes, yes.
when we will add this score from enemy spawner,
Yes.
uh, then will it not increase like जैसे हम लोग पहले उसको करेंगे, पहले एक अगर एनिमी उसने मारा, ठीक है, तो उसने 1 ऐड कर दिया, फिर उसने एक और मार दिया, फिर से उसने ऐड कर दिया, मतलब फिर से उसने दो ऐड कर दिया ना एक साथ में।
नहीं, दो ऐड नहीं करेगा, सब अलग अलग इंस्टेंस रन कर रहा है। एक मरा तो एक ही ऐड होगा, ठीक है। दूसरा मरेगा तो वो 1 + 1 2 हो जाएगा, ठीक है। फिर तीसरा मरा तो 2 + 1 3 हो जाएगा, मतलब हर एक एनिमी किल पे एक वैल्यू इंक्रीज करेगा, 1 + 1। So now, okay. So now we have this complete. Now we have a basic prototype ready, and let's see how now you can increase the increase it from the design perspective, how you can convert it to a better version. So let's jump to that, and I hope you all have downloaded that zip file which I shared on the team.
Yes, downloaded.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just okay, then just extract it and keep it somewhere. We'll just use it in about, I think, 15 to 20 minutes. Let's first download the assets which we'll be using. So I'll be dropping 2 links uh, in the chat section, and you just have to go there and download these are free assets, and one is for that town scenery, and one is for that soldier. So I'll just drop a link in the chat and you all can go there. So I'll follow with you all. So if I go to the first, this simple Polytown pack, if I click on this link, then it will open this asset store, and you need to first sign in to gain access to this. So as you can see, this is a free asset, and it is only of 4.1 MB, and it consists of a complete city environment, a complete design environment. So I picked this so that you can also use these individual assets to create your own environment, but I picked this for this session so that our time is not wasted in designing the complete environment, that you can try it out on your own and create something cool, obviously. So let's first add this to my assets so that I can import it. So here you have this add to my assets option. You can click here, and then hopefully it will take me to sign in. So with whatever Unity ID you created, you just sign in. Okay. Just sign in. I'm signing in with my Unity ID. And yeah, after this is signed in, as you can see that here I get the option open in Unity. So if I click on this, I'll be taken to, it will prompt me to open the Unity editor. I'll click on this, and once we go to the Unity, and in the Unity editor, this package manager will open. Since Unity version 2019.2 or 3, I guess, all the these packages have been shifted. This management has been shifted to package manager. Earlier there was this asset store link from where you had to click and directly download, import from there, but now we have this package manager to manage stuffs out. So here, as you can see, the same description which was on the website is shown here. Now here we have, first we have this import option, then download. First we have this download option, then import. Since I have already downloaded this, so I don't need to download it again, but you should first click on download so that it will download it first. It's just 4 MB file, and then click on import. I click on import. Yeah, then it will show me this complete list, like what all things are going to be imported. And now if I want to import this, I want to import everything. So by default, all elements are selected. And then if I again click on import, it will be importing all the elements. And it will just give some API update warning. So you can just click on I made a backup, go ahead. And then after after about 10 to 15 seconds, importing will finish. And the link is working at your side, right?
Yes.
Okay. So after importing, you will see here that in the assets folder, you just first click back here in the top screen. You have multiple options like animator, assets store, package manager. You first click on the scene tab so that you shift back to the scene. And here, as you can see, in the assets folder, you have a new folder which is of the name simple poly. What is its complete? Yeah, simple poly. So this is the new folder which is created after importing that new asset. And in this we have this prefabs folder. In prefabs folder we have the prefab for buildings. And if I drag one, you can see that we have a prefab for building. You can place this and create your own environment. Similarly, we have for nature, we have this stone, small stone. You can drag multiple instances and create your own. Then we have this billboard sign. This billboard sign you can drag and create your own, but we are not going to do this right now. What we'll do simply is we'll go to this demo scene. We'll simply go to this demo scene folder within the simple poly, and then you can see that there is one demo scene already created. This unity, with this unity symbol, you will see this demo scene already created. So if I double click on this, let's first save this scene. Be sure to save the current scene so that you don't lose any information in the current scene. I just hit Control S to save the scene, and then if I double click on demo scene, then it will open this scene. And as you can see that it is a complete, environment, a complete beautiful environment, and you can see how beautifully laid the roads. I mean, it is a complete environment, and it gives much more space for our player to move. So we'll be using this environment as a reference environment, and means easily the environment used in our final game. And in this, along the roads of this city, our player will move, and whatever enemies will be chasing will be running down these roads and all those stuffs. So to bring our player in here, what we need to do, first of all, have you all reached here?
Yes.
Okay, and so first of all, to bring our player in here, what we need to do is we need to move back to our previous scene, the sample scene on which we were working. And as you can see that for our play, everything is just drag out, yeah, so that your window appears again. Yeah, so as you can see that our player is not a prefab yet, it is a normal, it is a normal game object. So just to create it as a prefab, we can simply drag and drop this to our prefabs folder, and our player will also be created as a prefab. And when we move back to our new scene, this demo scene, yes, we save. And in our demo scene, what we can do, we first need to club these things into one single game object, because as you can see that these are outside the hierarchy, which means they are in the outermost hierarchy. So our game object will get lost if we add any other game object here. There are many components out of which these levels are made. So for that is simple. For that, we first need to click on this plus symbol and create an empty game object. First reset its position. Let's name this game object as town, since it will be holding this current town, all the elements of our current town. And then what we need to do is we need to go to the top, click on this as click on the first element in this demo scene list, move all the way down, and then hold shift and click on plane. Now you will see that everything that is present in this scene will be automatically selected. All the elements except this town, everything is selected, and then we just need to drag and drop it within our town. Now you can see that everything is present in our town, and now our list looks empty. So it's good, so that we can now add all the other elements and still not get lost in this wilderness of multiple elements. So for this, now for adding our player, we just need to go to our prefabs, and then we can just drag and drop our player from here to our scene here, and then we can simply reset its position, only the position, nothing else. So reset the position, and now you can see that our player is here in this environment. And if we hit play, no, we cannot hit play yet, because our camera didn't get imported, because our camera was separate from the player, and it was following the player with the help of a script. So what we can do is we can bring that camera from the previous scene, from our previous sample scene, with the same configuration to our this scene. Since the relative position in both the words is same, so we can simply copy paste that camera here. So it is very easy, very simple. For that, we switch back. We first save this scene, obviously, and then we again move back to our previous scene, the sample scene, and then we select our camera, main camera. We right click on this and we click on copy. Now we have the instance for this main camera copied, which we can move to the different scene in the same project. So now if we go back to our demo scene, which we were working on, double click on this demo scene, and now we first removed the main camera which was there in this scene. Now we have no cameras here, and now we can simply just paste our current main camera here. And when you paste it, you will see that the orientation is the same, just like we had in our previous scene. But the difference is that here, in this main camera, our player transform is missing, because while while copying and transferring to the current scene, all the relations with the other any associated game object is lost. So the association of the main camera which we have copied was with the player which was in that scene, not with the player in this current scene. So that is why this is missing here. So for that, simply we need to again drag this player, and here we need to place it in this missing transform place. Okay, and if we hit save in this camera follower script, we are doing this in the main camera. If we hit save and if we play, then you can see we have this complete city to move in. Let me first maximize this. Yeah, we have this complete city to move in, and we have this complete environment, and it has got much more space as compared to our previous one, right? Are you all able to do till here? Did you all understand how we are doing this? This was just simple moving stuffs here and there. Was it clear?
Yes.
Okay. So now we have this scene, and we also need to import our two that enemy spawners that we used in the previous scene, right? So simply we'll again go back to our previous scene by saving this scene first. Obviously we save this scene and we go to our previous sample scene, and here we have these two enemy spawners. So I don't think we need to, because these are already prefabs, right? Okay, I forgot, these are already prefabs, so we can simply drag and drop the prefab again. So moving back to the demo scene, if we open our prefabs and if we drag and drop our enemy spawner, and hopefully we reset its position. Now let's first fix a position where we want our enemies to spawn. You can fix any position, but I would let's see, I would pick this location because this is outskirts of the city. So it would look odd if those enemies spawn in front of the player. That would look a bit odd. So I'll just rotate it by, I guess, 90 degrees. Yes, and I'll just reposition it so that, yeah, our player, our this enemies will be spawned here. Let's just add one more location, so that the map is diverse. So we need multiple spawn locations. And if we drag and drop another enemy spawner, and yeah, again if we, yeah, we have this another location. Now let's fly by and let's add one last. Yeah, one last. Let's add it here. Enemy spawner. Yeah, and I'll just rotate it by 90 degrees. Yeah, so I have just used 3 enemy spawners in this scene currently. You can add more as per your preference. And now if we, let's see first if enemy spawner has everything in it. Yes, enemy spawner has the enemy within it. And if we, hopefully if we hit play, right now we don't have the UI in this scene because we changed scene, and we haven't added the UI here. But if we start playing, then we'll see that most probably, yeah, see, our enemies have spawned and they are following us, and if we shoot, they will die, obviously. Yeah, Okay, so it is working fine. So I hope you all got it till here, what we have done.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And now we need to change our player with that toon character, with this character, and we'll be working with a bit of animations now. So now you can click on the next link that I shared. There are two links. One was this, and if you click on this 3D characters link, then it will again open a Toon Soldiers World War II this uh, asset pack, and then you can click on. Since I have already downloaded this, I have this open in Unity option. You first need to download it or add it to your assets, and then click on open in Unity. I am opening it in Unity, and then as you can see here, I have this Toon Soldiers World War II demo. Since I already told you, I have downloaded this previously. If you haven't, you need to download this first. This download link will be active, and then after that, you can click on import. Again, all the elements that will be imported will be shown here. All are selected by default, and you can just again hit import, and then it will start importing all the elements. And again, you will be having a new folder with the this uh, with our this model for the Toon Soldier. And if you go back to our scene view, then you can see that if we open our Toon Soldier in the model part, you can see that if you click on this, you can see that here in the preview mode, you can see what your model looks like. This is a T-pose model. This is a general term in animation world or modeling world, where if a character has these both the arms like this in a cross fashion, and it stands like this, then this is a T-pose. This is called a T-pose model since it looks like a T. So this is a T-pose model, and what we need to do is we first need let's first open our player prefab. This is our player prefab, and now our body and our muzzle both are being rendered because of our mesh renderer. Okay, so what we need to do is, since we are going to use that model as our visible element, so what we can do is we can simply uncheck this mesh renderer for both our body and muzzle. And as you can see, we have only the collider left for this body because we untick the mesh renderer, so mesh won't be rendered. And now we can simply add the model to this to our current player. So if I simply drag this Toon Soldier here to our player, penetrate to the player, then you can see that our player is our player now contains this Toon Soldier model. And as you can see, it is a bit large as compared to our main body. If I again check this, then it is a bit large as compared to our main body, and that's fine. But if you would like to decrease its size, you can simply do it by rescaling it by, let's say, if I rescale it by 0.8, 0.8, and 0.8 in all the three directions. So now I have rescaled it, and yeah. So now if I hit play, I have added this. Now if I hit play, now you can see that since we haven't added animations yet, but our model looks good. And now we have this model, this T-shaped model only. So this is just like that static capsule we had, right? Just the thing is that now static capsule has been replaced with this model. This model is also static because we haven't added animation yet. We'll just add it in a moment now. So this is how it will show. Okay, and if we press space, then it will shoot. And why is it shooting like that? Because we have just we have just stopped our mesh, our that turret's mesh from rendering, but the mesh is still there, and that location is being used to generate these bullets. As we programmed it in the previous session. So this is how it will work, and I hope this is clear how we did this, how you can import and add your own player. Hello.
It's working.
Okay. And okay. And yeah. So now we have this player, and now we would like to add the animations to it. Okay. So in this Toon Soldier, as you can see, you also have one animation folder here. Let's first look at our model so that we know what are the components present in it. uh, this will also give you an idea of how models work. So at the very heart of the the hierarchy, at the very top of the hierarchy, we have this encapsulator, this Toon Soldier World War II, which is basically holding all the components of our players in a body. And in this we have this animator component attached. So this animator is basically a controller which is responsible for managing the animations. Now how do we run the animations? So if we talk in very raw sense, then animations are basically triggered movements which happen in accordance to a particular situation. Like for example, if we are standing idle, then for idle we know that our movement speed is 0, right? So we know that we have to play the animation idle for the player. Now if we have the animation of, let's say, walking, now for walking we know that if the player moves forward or backward, then we have to run that animation for walking. So that is basically a tree like of structure dependency, like in which direction the animation should flow on the basis of conditions, so that our animations look seamless, like the animations look logical. Okay. So here within this, now we have this BIP, and this we have mesh. This mesh is basically the complete data for the complete vertex out of which this model is made. And within this BIP we have all the things, like we have this pelvis, we have this foot part, and then in the pelvis we have this spine and thigh, left thigh, right thigh, and within this we have the subsequent parts of the body. So all the joints of the body are composed in this here. Okay. Now uh, we need to get the animations, fit these animations like idle, run, shoot within this guard. So for that, uh, if we go to our Toon Soldier, we'll see that here in the controller we have no controller attached. So controller is important since it will be handling the flow of the logic behind the animations, like which animation will run at which time. So to add a new controller here, we it is simple. We in this animation folder itself, we right click and we create uh, here animator controller. Click on this and let's just rename this to player anim control. Since this will be responsible for controlling the player's animation. And then we'll click on this, and then what we will do, we'll simply click on our player, and in this empty controller space we'll just simply drag and drop this player anim controller here. So now controller is added to our player, and if we double click on this controller, if we go to this animator window, you will see that we are in we have this particular blueprint type of structure. If I just maximize it, uh, if I just maximize it, you will see that we have this blueprint type of structure where we have this entry node, any state node, and exit node. So here you can rearrange it in the form of a graph, and this graph, this flow graph type of structure will definitely define how your animations will flow. You will understand how in a moment. So first, this entry level point, this green point, defines as soon as your game starts and as soon as your animator loop runs, what is the first animation that will run in this for this player. Okay. So what is the most basic animation? It is idle, right? Because at the start it may the player will be standing idly. So for this, we just need to click here, left click on this, hold it and drag it in here. Okay, and you can see that there is a node automatically set from this entry to this infantry combat idle animation. So whenever the animation will start running, it will first go to this infantry combat idle mode. Okay, and it will stand idly. And if we just run this for a while, you will see how this will change. If I just place it here somewhere, dock it back. If I dock it back here, and if I just play once, you will see how this thing will change. Yeah, as you can see, it is standing idly and the animation is running seamlessly. You all got it right, how it is happening. As soon as the game started, this thing came up. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, how these animations are made and how these things, that is actually a separate issue, because that comes under animation. And if you use Blender and Maya or any other rigging and animation tool, then you can understand how that thing works. But since that is not the scope of this tutorial session, so our main scope is for game development, so I am skipping that part. We are directly moving into the animations, like how you can deal with animations in Unity. If you want to learn more about that, you can just let me know. I'll give you the resources which are necessary. I'll point you to the resources and you can definitely learn. Okay, so now let's continue with our animator. Where did that go? So for our animator, we just saw that as soon as our game starts, we move to infantry combat idle. Now, what should be the condition for this? What can you say? For our players running, can anyone tell?
When you press this up or down arrow.
Okay, when we press this up and down arrow, right. So we, for adding that for adding the node for running in our graph, simply just like we did for the idle, we click on our run animation file, and then we drag it simply in our scene here. And now you can see that there are no connections here with this, because our entry point is already connected with our with the idle. And so this is a floating node, and we need to connect this floating node to maintain the cycle. So it's obvious that from idle mode only the player will start running, right? Once it will start, it is not possible that as soon as you enter the game it will start running, right? So it is quite logical that it will be first standing idle, then it will go in run mode. So for that, to set a node between these, we just click on this infantry combat mode, right click on this infantry combat mode, click on make transition, and then here use this node. Where did that node go? And then use this node to connect it to infantry combat run. Okay, now as soon as this animation will finish, it will go there, but we need to have a condition based transition, right? So if you click on this arrow, you can see that when you click on this arrow in this inspector mode, you have this one transition base. This is called a transition base, and in this transition base you have some options here, like what is the exit time and some graphs related to how you should transit from two animations. And here you have one list of conditions, and this list is empty. So this list of conditions is used to define how you can how this will move from this idle mode to run mode. Okay, so first of all, first let's just untick this has exit time, and you can just click this slider and drag it to squeeze it to 0. Because what happens is that if you click on has exit time, then the problem is that if you start running, if you want to start to run, then what will happen is that if the idle animation is running, then every animation has a seamless loop, and it has a particular time for which that animation is recorded. So if you click on has exit time, then what will happen is that as soon as you press movement, this up or down key, you want your player to move, but it will not but it will move, but the animation will not change suddenly. So you will have a very staggering transition. Why? Because it will wait for the current animation to end, then it will shift to the next animation. So we don't want that. So we untick this has exit time and pull this slider, which was earlier here, to this position so that it doesn't bother us anymore. Okay. And for this transition condition, here we have this parameter list, and this list is empty currently. Here we can define parameters which we can use to control the animation flow. So we first need to create, let's create a float type of let's create a float type of parameter, and let's name this player's movement, player move. Okay. And what we will do is we will store the value if we press the up and down key, as if you remember from the script, if we press the up and down key in the player controller, then we had this input dot get axis horizontal, right? So what does this do? This if we press the up key, if we press the right key or left key, and what it will do is its value will move from 0 to +1, and for left key it will move from 0 to -1. It will interpolate between these values. So in our animation also, what we need is that when this player move value is, let's say, greater than 0, then we want the animation, this combat run animation, to shift to this combat run animation, so that when the player is moving, then it doesn't play this idle mode animation, but it runs this run mode animation. Okay. So if we click on this transition again, and if we move down here in this condition list, if we click on this plus symbol, and here, as you can see, since we have only one parameter, so it automatically places this parameter here. And if player move is greater than, let's say, 0.05, because we don't want our player to immediately start running, and if we, because this keys are sensitive, so it might happen that your value might be somewhat fluctuate sometimes between 0.001 and things like that. So if we have a very strict limit of 0, then your player might stagger with the animations, and the animation tree will be unstable. So for that, we are just setting a top, what you can say, we are setting a top limit. And then once this starts running, we also want to make it come back to idle mode once the player has stopped running, right? So for that, we need to make a transition from our combat run mode to our combat idle mode. Okay. And you can see that there are two transition links, one from idle to run, for which we have set the condition for player move if the value of player move is greater than 0.05. And for this from run to idle, we have just set up another link, and here we'll again add a parameter, and it will be player move is less than 0.05, then it will be standing idly. Okay. And again, we will just remove this exit time stuff. We'll uncheck this exit time, and we'll slide this slider to null. And now you must be thinking that how we are going to affect this player move value, right? So for this, we first need to go to our player script. We'll go to our player script, and from our player script, we will access this value and update it in accordance to the key we are going to press. Okay. So if we go back to our player script here, in our player, we first need to add the instance. We first need to get the instance of our animator that is present within the player, right? So within the player, we will be having our animator. If I dog this now, I think that, yeah. If I dog this now, move back to our scene, and as you can see in our player, we have this tool soldier, and within this tool soldier, we have this animator. Okay. So if we go to our script for this player controller, we first create an animator type of object, animator, and let's name this player anim. This will hold the instance for our animator. Since our animator holds this animation controller, and that animation controller affects the the cycle of that animation. So we first need to hold the instance of that, and then here in the start we need to store its instance, initialize its instance. So player anim is equal to this dot game object dot find get component in children. Okay, why get component in children? First let us complete this. Get component in children. What type of component? Animator. Now why get component in children? Because as you can see, our player script is attached to the parent, that is our player game object. Okay, and the toon soldier on which this animator is present is the children of our player, is the child of our player. Okay, so to fetch any component from our child, we are using this get component in children. You can use this for any component, like since we have only one animator, so we'll get only the instance of that single animator that is present on our model, so it will be stored here. Okay, and now simply we'll go here, and here what we have to do is here we simply have to update the value. We simply have to get the instance that we saved, player anim dot get player anim. See, we have here get bool, we'll have get bool, get float, we have all sorts of values. So what is our current this parameter? Our current parameter is of float type, right? Yeah, this is of float type, so we need to have a get float player anim. From that player anim, what we need a float type of parameter, so get float. And what is the parameter name? Parameter name is player move, right? So player move, okay, player anim dot get float player move dot second. Oh, sorry, not get float. Get float will give us the value, but we need to set the value. Okay, so player anim dot set float, and here we have to write the name of that variable, name of that parameter. It is player move. So take care of the cases, player move, comma, and what is the value that should affect it? It is our input dot get axis vertical, because our vertical, the up and down keys are basically responsible for our running behavior. Okay, input dot get axis horizontal. Okay, oh sorry, not horizontal, vertical. Sorry. Vertical. Horizontal is for move, rotation, so rotation isn't affected. Okay, now we have saved this, and if we move back to our game and let it reload, and if we try to play, I guess it should work. You can see it is working, right? You all understood why it is happening? So why, how is it working?
What was this last line?
1 minute. You want to see the script?
Yes.
Script is here. See, I just added this one line. Means this one line here in update, and before that in start, this player anim was this animator component.
How it will increase the value of player move?
What?
How it will increase the value of player move, and how?
See, what will happen, this set float value, see this input dot get axis vertical is being updated every frame, and I told you in the previous sessions that what does this input dot get axis vertical do? If we press the up or down key, or let's say W or S key, then this input dot get axis vertical's value will change. If we press W, then its value will increase from 0 to +1. This its base value, its default value is 0 when you are pressing neither of the keys. Okay, but if you press W, then that is the positive axis, and the value of this input.getAxis vertical will increase from 0 to 1. And likewise, if you press S, then its value will decrease from 0 to -1. Okay, and it will interpolate, which means it will not move directly to 1, jump to 1, but it will move slowly to 1. Okay, so here when we are whenever we press the W key and this update function keeps on running. Okay, so this input.getAxis vertical, when we press the W key, then its value will increase from 0, right, and it will go to 1. As soon as it will cross 0.05, this player move value will also be constantly updated. Now if this player move value, as the condition we set, if this player move value increases from 0.05, just like we did here, if it is greater than 0.05, then that transition will occur, right? So that is what is happening here. Now did you understand how it is working?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so this is how we are doing this. And so as you can also experience that currently for the back, if you press the back button, the idle animation is only running, because for this model we don't have a back animation for back running, so it is showing only idle. And the condition also, since our condition is that once the value is below 0.05, it should play the idle animation. So whenever we press S, the value will turn to negative, right? And if it turns to negative, then it still remains less than 0.05, so it will continue playing the idle animation. So in case you get another animation like any back moving animation, then you can simply add it, and you can simply change the condition for back animation, for that back running animation. You just need to set that value for the script, for that float value, set the condition. Okay, now we have this, and see what we are left with now is we just need to import the UI here, which will be done really quick, and then we have to set the muzzle position and bring that shooting animation. So I think you are only two guys, so okay, we have now three here. So are you all, do you want to continue, or because this is the last session, so whatever you guys say, because the population is too low, so I think.
So after this session, there will be no any game.
No. This was the last session. No, that is why.
Then
This is the last
continue.
session plan. Okay. So, okay. Now let's first. Now, if you see, let's just play once more, and I'll show you what the difference is. You can see that if you hit space, right? So the bullets are generating from somewhere else, not from the bullets should generate from here, the muzzle, but these are generating from someplace else. Why? Because our muzzle was in the initial model, our muzzle was placed here, so it is being generated from here, right? So what we need to do is we need to generate our bullets from this muzzle. So how are we going to do that? It's simple. We'll go to our switch to the scene view, move closer to our player, and let's first see how we were generating those uh, mm, how we were generating our, what do you say, that bullets. Okay, so if we go to our player, you'll see that here we have this muzzle transform from where we were generating, right? So for our player, what we need to do is we need to generate it somewhere here, right? So for that, we need to have the tip of this transform. We need to have the transform of this tip of the gun. Okay, so for storing the transform, it's pretty simple. What we need to do is we need to create an empty game object, and let's just reset its position. And now what we can do is we can simply drag the point, since this center represents the location of the particular place. So what we can do is we can simply move this center and align it to our gun's muzzle. Okay, and as you can see here, if I place it, it will need some positioning, and it will be placed. So Yeah. Okay. So it is placed here, right? And but this will not move with the player. Why? Because whatever is parented with this gun will only move with this gun. Now, if I just play it for a moment, you will see what happens. If I start playing, you'll see that this remains here only. This remains here only. It doesn't go with the gun. Why? Because this game object isn't parented to this gun. If it gets parented to this gun, then only it will always remain here at the muzzle of this gun. Okay, so we first need to parent it to this gun. So we first find where this parent is, where this gun is in this complete hierarchy. So I think it is in the spine region. The thigh region is for the leg, the spine region is for the upper body. In the spine, we have, which hand is this? This is the right hand. So in this BIP 001R clavicle, we have this, what is the name? Upper arm. We have this forearm. Forearm this is this part, and then we have this hand. So this hand is basically this weapon, this hand plus this weapon. And so we need to move our this game object to this hand. And let's first rename this game object to muzzle position. Let's rename this to muzzle pose. And you can see that there is a simple add button here. Why is it so? Because we have added it outside. We haven't made changes to our prefab. We are just adding it externally. So if we want to incorporate it in our prefab, you can simply go back, click here on your player, and then here you have this overrides option. And then in the overrides option, you will see what is the current change you have made. So you have two options, either revert all or apply all. So revert all will remove all the changes, or apply all will apply the current change. So if I click on apply all, then you can see this will become the part of this body now. Okay. And simply now if we go back to our player, and now we just need to change this muzzle transform, because this muzzle transform is currently this muzzle, which was present here. But now our muzzle is this muzzle pose. So if we click on player, go down to our player weapon script, and here is replace this muzzle with this muzzle pose. And if we save, and then if we run, now you can see if we press, now the bullet is spawning from the correct location, right? Do you all understand how we did this?
Yes, sir.
This is how basically parenting works. This was just to show you how you can see how complex hierarchy is this. But if you can see, this is also the benefit of naming properly. Since the proper naming convention has been followed, we understood like what is the right hand or what is the left hand. Otherwise it would have been a terrible nightmare to find out which is the left hand or right hand. So and how you could maneuver through the hierarchy. So this is how we did it. Okay. And now one last thing is that UI which we created in the last slide. We are just going to copy paste it as well here. So if we go back to our previous scene, first just save this scene and go back to our sample scene. And here here we just need to copy our UI manager and this canvas. So you can just select both of these, right click and select copy, and then move back to our current scene, this demo scene. And here you can simply right click and click on paste. So we again have our canvas here present here, and we have our UI manager, and the score text of the same canvas from the same canvas is again present here. And now if we play and if we try to hit the enemies, I guess the score should work. Yeah, score is working. But the score is a bit light, so let's just change its color. Scores color, yeah, canvas score. I think the transparency is too low, so let's increase the transparency to 255, and Let me change the font size to at least 40 so that it looks a bit big. So now we have this complete here, and if you want to, just for our enemy, as you can see in the sample scene, we have our enemy colored as red. Okay, so if you just want to, add a material here for some color, then you can create a new material by going to this material folder which we created initially. Right click here, go to create, and in create here you have this material. Click on material, and here let's name this enemy material. Okay, enemy mat. Now in this enemy mat, I just need to change its color, this albedo part. If I click on this white color, this color picker, and I can just change this to red. And I can just say now this whatever material, to whatever object this material will be applied, this color you can see. So if we go back to our enemy in this prefabs, open our enemy, and if we go back to our material and try to drag and drop it on our enemy, so you can see it has this distinct red color as we had in our this demo scene which we shared, right? So we have this sample red color, and now if we hit play, then you will have these red enemies, and you can see that the leg of this player is also somewhat below the ground. So we will be fixing that issue. See, now we have this red enemies, and we'll just fix this leg issue for a while. Why is this below the ground? Because if you see here, if you click on the player, you will see that the collider of the player isn't exactly touching the ground. It is a bit above the ground. And since when the collider will touch the ground, the feet will definitely be below the ground because they are not covered by the collider, right? So for that, what we can do is simply we can just move the collider a bit down by clicking on the player. And here, if we move down, I think the collider is on the body. On the body for this collider, capsule collider, if we move its center along the y-axis to a bit down, uh, if we move it, let's say to 0.2, oh sorry, minus 0.2, we are moving it down. Minus 0.2 would be huge, minus 0.1. Yeah, if we move it to minus 0.1, and if we try playing again, then yeah, now the feet is on the ground properly, and yeah, it is working properly. Okay, yeah, I think looks good. Yeah, good. Okay, so now we are done with the player, and you have almost a product that you can share with your friends. But just the thing is that we don't have one main menu. So let's then create a small main menu, but it will be very quick. And okay, so let's first create a main menu. For creating a main menu, one second. So see guys, we have I think around 20 minutes. So the building part will also take some time. So what do you guys want? I'll just show you one sound, how you can add a sound for this bullet, and then shall we move to the publishing part, or do you want to see that part also, main menu part? Whatever you guys say. हेलो
सर, जो भी कन्वीनियंट हो वो कर दीजिए।
कन्वीनियंट तो चलो तब तो, क्योंकि ज्यादा देर खींचना भी सही नहीं है ना, तुम लोग को भी तो काम है। तो ठीक है, तो अभी बस एक साउंड ऐड करना बता देता हूँ, और फिर ये कैसे करना है, मीन्स क्या बोलते हैं, ये ऐड कैसे करना है, ये इसको पब्लिश कैसे कर सकते हैं, ये बता देता हूँ, ठीक है। और बाकी मेन मेन्यू का मैं होगा तो मैं एक लिंक शेयर कर दूंगा, मतलब कोई वीडियो का, तो वहां से पता चल जाएगा बनाना कैसे है, ठीक है। तो अभी फिलहाल चलो, तो एक साउंड का बस एक डाल देते हैं, वो वो वाला जो फोल्डर होगा जो मैंने शेयर किया था डाउनलोड करने के लिए, अभी उसका काम पड़ेगा. सो इफ यू हैव डाउनलोडेड दैट फोल्डर, it is by the name of session 6 extras. Okay, and if you have extracted this, like I have extracted this, and I just want to import this, so I'll just drag this folder from my explorer to here to the assets in Unity, and it will take some time to import, small time. Yeah, now it's imported. So in this folder, this you can see that I have one background music, an image, and one SFX. So this is for a laser shot. So this is to be played when the player shoots. Okay, so let's see. Let's go to enemy. Yeah, so let's first go to our bullet, because we want this sound to play whenever the bullet is shot. So what logic we can use is that as soon as a bullet is created, as soon as a bullet is spawned, this sound plays. Okay, that is the simplest approach we are going to use. So if you go to prefabs, open our bullet prefab, and then here if we go down, we can simply click on here add component, and you can simply place an audio source. There are two things: audio source and audio listener. Audio source is from where your audio clip will be played, and audio listener is basically a listener that will give the audio output to your output device. So one audio listener in our scene is attached to the camera itself. So we'll listen to any sound that is added to the scene, and which is near to the camera basically. So here when you add this, you will get this audio source, and there are no audio clips right now here. So if you just click this, it will show what are the audio sources available here. So we need to add this SF laser. Okay, and we have this play on awake option is ticked on, is already ticked. This means that as soon as this object will be created, the sound will be played. We don't want to loop this sound because we just want one laser effect sound. And then here we have this spatial blend from 2D. We need the sound to be 3D. It should follow the laws of it should follow Doppler effect, right? I hope you all know Doppler effect. What is Doppler effect? In physics you might have studied how sound behaves and stuff like that, logarithmic fall off. And so this is for Doppler effect. We convert it to full 3D. And now if we play, if we save this and if we play, are you all able to see? Are you all able to? Oh, maybe because you all are connected to Teams, then you might not be able to listen if you are connected on Teams and running this game on the same time. But if you close Teams and if you try to run after that, you will see that you can listen to this player, this shooting sound. Okay, so this is how we added a simple sound in here. And just one last thing, that as soon as our player is hit by one of the enemies, our game should restart. Okay, so otherwise the game has no purpose. You will just keep on playing. So for that, what we can do is simply go to our player, and in our player we have this script for this player controller. This, if we go to edit script, and here let's check for its collision. So for collision, I think on player we have no colliders attached. Yeah, right. So on player we have this collider in this body tag. Okay, and any other else? No. Okay, so what we can do is we can simply yeah, we can simply go to our script and we can create a normal void on collision enter. Okay, and if collision, just like we did with the enemies, right? If our collision dot game object, this collision basically holds all the data related to the collision, like collision has all happened with which object, and what is the tag object of that object and stuff like that. So if collision.GameObject.tag double equal to what is the tag enemy. I think our enemy has the tag enemy. Let's check. Enemy has the tag. Oh, enemy has no tag. Okay. Enemy has no tag. Okay, I guess we never created a tag. Okay, let's then add a tag. Add tag space enemy. We are creating a new tag for the enemy. Save this. Move back to our enemy and add this tag enemy to it. And now in the script, if enemy, then destroy, then we will just reload the scene. Okay, so for reloading the scene, you first have to import one extra library for scene management using Unity Engine dot scene management. So it basically holds all the functions which are related to the change of scenes or loading a new level or exiting this level and stuff like that. So if collision.GameObject.tag is double equal to enemy, that is if the object which I have collided has the tag enemy, then I want to load a new scene. So for that we have this scene manager class, scene manager dot load scene, and I think this scene number is 0. You just enter here 0 and I'll tell you how this number is decided, like what is the number of this scene. It is basically present in the build menu. So this is the script for collision. And now if I just run, I don't know if this will work because the collider is not attached to the player, but let's just try once. If I hit play, and if I try to get hit by some player, by some enemy, let's see what happens. I try to get hit by some enemy. Let's see what happens. Yes, you saw what happened. As soon as enemy hit me, this game restarted, right? Did you all understand why? How is it happening? This particular part?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay. Sir. Okay. So now we are done with the our game stuff, and if you made it till here, then it's cool. Very good. Now you have a complete. You have a game which is at least playable. So there are many other things which we can add, like menu we left, and the the what you can say, the weapon. We can have this reload facility, and we can have round based spawning, and there are many other stuffs. So this was not a complete game, but this was actually something that you can just start, get used to, like a starting point, and you can create your own games. So now let's okay, now let's build this game. Okay, so for that we'll go to build settings. Okay, and in this build settings we can create a exe file for this game. Here you have the different platforms on which you can port this game to. By default it is PC, Mac, or Linux standalone. Now you have this Android and universal Windows platform for Windows games. You have this tvOS, PS4, iOS. Means you can port it to basically many all the platforms that are available basically. So now we'll be targeting PC right now, and our target platform will be Windows. Architecture will be, let's say, x86, because we want to support both 32 and 64-bit. And here click on add open scenes. So you can see that this demo scene on which we were working has this index 0 here, right? And what happens is that when this script runs and this load scene is called, and when we pass this index 0, then this particular script will be called and executed, and this scene will be reloaded. Okay, so that is why we added this scene number 0. Now everything else will remain the same, and then what we need to do is we need to simply click on build, and then once you click on build, it will ask you to where you can store your build. So I'll just you can save it wherever you want. Maybe I can just store it somewhere, say in the tutorials. I'll store here as I'll make a new folder named as game, let's say game, and I'll just, oh, by the way, before that, before building, you first need to go to the player settings, and then here in the player setting, you need to write the company name, product name. So company name is, if you are working in a company, then definitely they write some company. I will just write freshers company, let's say I'm writing. And what is the name of this game? You need to specify the name of this game. So name of this game can be anything. I am just writing Infinity because it is running infinitely. So let's say I'm writing Infinity. Then what is the version of this game? Here you can add the icon for this game. What type of icon you want? Let's say I want this type of icon. Okay, so main menu icon. I actually made this for main menu, but let's say I added this to the default icon for our game. So the exe file will have this icon. Okay, and what should be the default cursor of our game? Then there are many more options, like these are the options related to graphics, which are not of much purpose right now. So these are the basic options you have specifically for the Windows part. Then you have multiple options for icon, like how you can create the icon. Now you have specific resolution settings, like if you want your game to run in full screen mode and stuff like that. So you have multiple options here. You just need to move around and check what are the options best suited for you. Now since the settings here are saved, you can click exit this. You click on build, and then you can go to our folder where you want to save. And here I am selecting this game folder, and then it will start building. Okay, and as you can see, it will start building, and it will take some time depending on how many assets your game has. Since this is a small game, I don't think it will take much data. It will take much time. It will be done in no time. But it depends on your game, how many assets you are using, and what is the magnitude of your game, like what is the expanse of your game. So it depends on all those stuffs. This complete process will run, and in the meantime, I just want to show you all quickly itch.io. So you can go to itch.io. It's basically an online platform for publishing games for free. So here in itch.io, like I am already logged in, so my account is already logged in. So if you have never made an account, you might be getting an option of sign in here. You can sign in and create your account, and just like you create normal accounts, it's the same. And once you create your account, you will get the same, your name, your avatar here, and then here in the drop down you have this create in this create menu, you have this dashboard, upload new project. If you go to dashboard, you will have the projects that you have made and what is the download status for those. So these are, like, let's say these are the two projects which I made. And now if I want to upload a new project, you can just click on upload new project, and then here you need to add the title of your project URL, like what should be at the end. uh, like if I want to add Infinity, if I want to add this game Infinity, I'll write the type and I'll type the name Infinity. Then in this project URL, Infinity will be added automatically. Then you can add a short description, one line description about your project, and then what type of project is this? Is it a game or game asset? So it is a game. You can select game, and you can upload a cover image, like what will appear on your web page, and you can add the screenshots for your game. Just like you have that Play Store games, right? So that is it is like the same thing, that you are hosting your game and you are showing your people like what is the game like, preview of your game. What kind of project is it? It is downloadable HTML or Flash. So it is downloadable project. Then what is the status of the project? Even if the project is in development, you can add it here. The tag will be shown that it is in development, and currently it is released, so I'll add release. Then you can add the pricing for the project. For example, if you want to make your project paid, like someone has to pay some fee to download your project, or should it be free, no payments, or there can be one donate option, like if the purchaser voluntarily wants to donate you, so you can use this option. And then you need to upload the file here, so whatever build file. So here, as you can see, now in the game folder, I have this. You can see here, Infinity, I have this exe file. And if I just double click it, it will open in full window. and you can see, yeah, can see like it opens in full window. Now for running this project you don't need Unity, because this is an exe file. Even a computer without Unity will run it. It will run like normal game now, and you can see that this project is now working. And yeah, I died and it spawned again. So this is your exe file. And if I want to exit this, since I haven't created that menu, so I don't have that exit option, so I will just click on that exit button. And so that was your exe build. So you need to upload that complete folder here. Maybe you can create a zip file and upload the file here. Your file size limit can only be 1 GB. So just take care of that whenever you create a game. And then you can add a description here, details like what your game has, what is the backstory of your game, and something about your game, like what does the player have to do in your game. Now you can set the genre of your game, like is it action, adventure, card game, educational, whatever. Then you can add tags, like is it a single player game, 2D game, 3D game, just like we have in Play Store. It is similar to that. Now if your game is available on Play Store or Amazon Store or anywhere, you can just click on here and add a link. It will ask you to add a link here, so customers will be redirected there if they click. Now you can use custom noun for the game, like what is your special avatar for your game and stuff like that. Then community, this is for comment enable option, and what is the visibility of your page. And then when you click on save and view page, it will show you how your page will look, and then you can publish. So it is that easy, very easy actually. And whenever you have to do, you click on no payments, okay? Because if you click on any of these two options, they will ask you for your bank account and credit account details, and you don't want to give that. So this is how you create, and I'll just show you a sample like how your project looks after you create it. And if I show one, and it is opening. While it's opening, so I guess you all got it, how you can build the game, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you can simply now you can just create a zip out of that, and you can simply share it with the friends. See, this is like this. So when you create your page, you can have this top title, and then this is the description. These are the screenshots of the game, and then you have this install instructions you can add, like how the user must install. And then beneath this download button, you will be having like your zip file. If you are creating a zip file, since this was created on a different game engine, this game, so there directly exe file is present here. So if you are creating on, let's say, Unity, and you'll have to package your project into a zip file and then upload it. Then if you click on download, then your zip file will be downloaded. You can add your comment, means the user which will visit here can comment on your game. They can give you feedback. So this is a very good platform. You can definitely check this out, use this to share your game. And in case you upload this game after completing, after making your own version out of it, then do share your game, do tell me as well, do post it somewhere, so that we could know, like people could know like what you have developed. Okay, so I guess this is it for this complete session, and I hope you all learned. Since you are just 3 of you, I just want to know the feedback, like if it was good, or the complete 6 sessions. Was it fine?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have now ended it at about time 9:01 p.m. and I guess now, okay, so this was the end, and I hope that you all will share your complete games.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Whenever you complete, you just post it in either in the Teams chat, or you can post it on Slack. You can directly post it on Slack on the game team channel. So you can directly post that people can play your game. And so so okay, so hopefully if the sessions were good, and okay, so I hope you all are excited about returning
Sir,
back.
hello, sir.
Yeah.
So what about the club selection process?
Club selection, for the club selection process, see, what is planned is you will be having everyone will be having a basic aptitude test sort of stuff, which means you'll be having some basic programming questions, which will be common for any team which you join. Okay, that will be a basic test, and within that test only, I guess there will be different sections for the specific team related questions. Like if you want to apply to game team, then there will be some questions related to whatever we have studied here in this in the 6 sessions, whatever we have discussed and whatever was there in the PPT. And maybe you might get some in 1 or 2 days, you might get some task to be completed in the particular game. In this game like we are working, I might give you some task like, okay, implement this system, and if you successfully implement that system and show it to me, then that will be small task that you need to complete to get into that selection process. And I just want to see the efforts, like how much efforts you are paying putting in, and how you all are have you all understood or not, and stuff like that. For the other teams, they will be having their respective methods. For example, in ML they might have some simple model training stuff. Maybe, because I don't know about the rest of the teams, but for game team it will be something similar. Like there will be some basic theoretical questions, like how do you instantiate at a particular position, and I'll be asking some logic, like if you want to move the player towards that, then what type of function will you use, things of like that. And some small tasks like implement this system. Like if I give you implement a high score system that stores the high score of the player. So that are the small. So I will also give you the tutorial where you can follow most of the stuffs. So that is how things will work. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. So I'm ending this session. Okay.
अभी आप मेन
Thank
के
you,
बारे
sir.
में बोल रहे थे, तो मेरा नेटवर्क चला गया था, एक बार बता दो क्या बोला।
हाँ पुलकित,
मेन मेन्यू के बारे में बता रहे थे ना, उस टाइम पे नेटवर्क चला गया था मेरा, तो एक बार
ओ अच्छा नहीं, मेन मेन्यू के बारे में यही था कि मेन मेन्यू तो अभी फिलहाल बनाया है नहीं, ठीक है। मेन मेन्यू का क्या करेंगे कि एक लिंक शेयर कर देंगे, जो आज जो रिकॉर्डिंग अपलोड होगी ना, उसमें एक लिंक शेयर कर देंगे, और उस लिंक से तुम मतलब उसमें मेन मेन्यू कैसे बनाते हैं उसकी वीडियो होगी, या तो तुम ब्रैकीज के चैनल पे देख सकते हो, उनके पास एक बहुत अच्छी वीडियो है कि मेन मेन्यू कैसे बनाते हैं। तो एक बेसिक सा मेन मेन्यू तुम उनसे सीख के, और बस तुम्हें कुछ नहीं करना है, वो जो जब जैसे ही वो प्ले बटन क्लिक करेगा ना यूजर, तो प्ले बटन क्लिक करने पे तुम्हें वही वाला फंक्शन सीन मैनेजर डॉट लोड सीन, और सीन नंबर जो है पर्टिकुलर मान लो 01 जो कुछ भी है वो डाल देना है। तो क्या होगा, प्ले बटन क्लिक करते ही वो दूसरा सीन लोड ले लेगा जिसमें तुम्हारा गेम है। ओके, तो बस उतना ही करना है उसमें। तो मैं वैसे लिंक शेयर कर दूंगा, तुम वहां से देख के रेफर करके कर लेना। ओके ओके, चलो थैंक यू एवरीवन।
Thank you, sir.